I've played quite a few MSX games, especially during my Konami conquest, as they put out tons of software for the PC in tandem with what they were doing with the Famicom disk system, or in some cases the arcade. But as always, with any format you play video games on, there's going to be good ones and there's going to be bad ones. And the topic of today's episode are 10 more MSX games that you should avoid. Games that make you feel like Rosie O'Donnell is snowboarding down your urethra with a flamethrower. They aren't the worst games, but they certainly weren't fun to me. Let's begin. Oh man, it's been so long since I took my Konami conquest. That was an era of uncovering some really bad games that I just never really wanted to see again. This is one of them, Hinotori Huhin, a manga created by the godfather of manga, Osamu Tezuka. Hinotori means bird of fire, so it's not uncommon to hear this manga called Phoenix. The second part of the name, Huhin, means karma, and that's the exact chapter of the manga where this game takes place. And if you've read the manga or watched the anime, you know that the protagonist of this game is Gao, who is a guy who was rejected by his village, and then he became a bandit, a ruthless one at that. This chapter spawned two games, Hinotori Huhin for the MSX, and Hinotori Huhin Gao no Boken for the Famicom, which really isn't that bad, it's just janky. But the MSX game very much lends its inspiration to Nightmare, the first game at least. We walk towards the top of the screen in these channels, hitting different objects to find different keys that open up different doors. Seems normal, right? Hell no! This game is one constantly moving maze, and that drove me insane. To beat this, you need to dodge the bullshit enemies, know where the keys are, find the keys, move to different worlds to use said keys, all the while constantly scrolling. This game would have made eons more sense if they made it into a platformer, which is exactly what the Famicom game was anyway. Oh Jesus. Well, half of Europe is going to be really upset with me in about 5 seconds. This game is notorious in the ZX Spectrum world because it's playable. I mean, maybe. It's a platformer through and through, and our whole objective is to grab these flashing objects, but that's easier said than done because our little protagonist Willy is a good old-fashioned helpless protagonist. Now, I complained about the hitboxes while I was playing this, but I'm pretty sure I was just frustrated at the fact that I was listening to In the Hall of the Mountain King on perpetual loop while I was trying my hardest to get through it. Plus, we have an air meter. Come on, man, just let me enjoy the platforming, at least what's there. Platforms in this game love to disappear. You're going to see a plethora of sports games on this list because that was what Konami did quite frequently, not only in the arcades, but on the MSX home computer. Between Konami and Hudson Soft, those two practically dominated the market. Now, this is the true sequel of Track and Field in the arcades, a game we all know and love, well, some of us do, enough to fashion a way to push the buttons faster. Hyper Sports, though, while it maintains the same amount of energy that it would have in the arcade, the control scheme is where they went wrong. Like I mentioned, we would have to bash the shit out of the buttons in the arcade, but that wasn't plausible for the MSX version, which ended up being broken into 3 separate games. Now, the second one isn't that bad, but the first one is definitely a product of its time. We have diving, long horse, trampoline, and horizontal bar, and any game that requires motion will require you to wiggle the damn stick. It's just not fun. If you try to play this at home and you use any controller, you will break your analog stick. Just don't do it. I hate to say it, but I would much rather tap the hell out of my buttons. But either way you spin it, something is going to get destroyed. This series annihilated my arcade stick, and I've yet to buy another one. Jet Set Willy. Europe, you ready to come back for round 2 like it's 1939? This is the sequel to Manic Miner, and in the game, from what I've learned, we play as Willy, who apparently at the end of Manic Miner is stupid rich. I don't know, never made it far enough to care. Somehow he bought tons of stuff, and he had a massive house party, and this irritates his maid Maria, who makes him go around cleaning up the entire house before he can go to bed. So we explore his massive mansion, his yacht, and a beach, dealing with some of the worst hitboxes I have ever encountered in my experience pushing buttons. If it's any consolation, the box art for this game is 100% how I felt playing it, and to be honest, I'd rather explore the innards of my home plumbing infrastructure head first than ever play this game. Anytime you see Pro Yakyu, it's baseball. Anytime you see Pennant Race, it's baseball. Anytime you see Gekkotatsu, it's Clash. True story. Baseball is a big deal in America, but in Asian countries, it's a straight up lifestyle. I can't tell you how epic going to baseball games in South Korea and Japan was. They take it much more seriously than we do here. They have mascots, coordinated dances, heckles, songs, merchandise. They'll even fight in the streets if a game doesn't go their way. It's fucking insane. But the game looks good though, doesn't it? Well, unfortunately, looks can be deceiving. When I play a baseball game, I'm looking for a few things. Offensively, I want to be able to run the bases efficiently. I want to be able to hit the ball. Defensively, I want to be able to field the ball efficiently and have players that are aware of what's going on around them. And guess what? All of the things I mentioned, this game failed at. Your characters run as slow as a cat deciding which side of the door to be on, and your basemen are as bright as people who clap on the airplane after it lands. They're just fucking idiots. It's so frustrating to watch the CPU blaze through the bases while your players casually stroll down the baselines. It's dreadful. And this is something that you'll find often in the 80s era of baseball games. A majority of companies couldn't figure it out. But why change the topic? Let's look at another one. Yep, I wasn't kidding. Konami did tons of sports games and tons of MSX games. This is one of the earlier baseball games though, coming out in 1985. So you can see how even though Pennant Race came out 3 years later, they never figured out how to do anything right. Yet again, I'm contending with horrible batting mechanics, people who are one step above Mr. Game & Watch in terms of motion, and an aggressive CPU. Button 1 swings the bat, but it's slow. You ever asked a teenager to do one thing like to bend over and pick up a piece of trash that they left on the ground because apparently as a parent I'm their maid? That's how long it takes to swing the bat. And when you're throwing, you're at the mercy of the entire roided out opposition. They'll hit home runs all the time, and your team will run around like a gaggle of toddlers when they hear the ice cream truck. It's insane how stupid your team is. This game is just rough. And I wish it wasn't, but it is. Well, good news, we've broken out of the trend of Konami games. This one is actually a Microprose game, who if you know them, they were really big on quality simulators, but that's assuming that the simulator was on a quality computer, of which the MSX really wasn't. As the name implies, we fly a jet, and it's in the sense that it's acrobatic. We start the game zoomed out to 6,000 feet behind our tiny airplane, looking at gauges that make zero sense. Then after contemplating what button does what for about 30 minutes, then you'll probably maybe get off the ground at 1 second per frame before crashing into the ground because this game has one of the most obtuse control schemes I have ever seen in a flight simulator, and I've played quite a few. Plus, you get to hear this amazing soundtrack during the entire game. Lovely, isn't it? It's time for Hudson to get the 2 minutes of shame. I don't even know how to describe this game. Basically, we're a guy with a grappling hook, and it's our job to shoot balls out of the sky. These balls break up into smaller balls, and while it may look simple, this is a prime example of Hudson Soft games looking easy, but having an incredibly deceptive level of difficulty. For many of you, at least those who love arcade games, you'll scream, "That's pain!" Yeah, it is. Or Buster Bros if you're in the North American region, but this came first. And as you can see, it's much to be desired. You see, you can move around fairly well, it's just left to right, but there's no frame skippage in the animation. The balls, on the other hand, are not programmed well at all. You'll oftentimes die to a blank screen because you can't predict where the hitbox for the balls will land, and it's very frustrating. I actually enjoy paying, so to try a game that predated it was just kind of scathing. You know I love Tetris. It's a huge part of my life, and I've made it a point to play tons of varieties of Tetris with my grandmother whenever she comes to visit. Hopefully she'll be here for Easter, and we'll likely continue that tradition in front of you all. But this version of Tetris, it's very rough. If I gave Aria crayons and said, "Hey, draw Tetris from memory," this is the result that we would see. Now, to be fair, this is one of the first home-ported versions of Tetris, and the reason I don't like it is that it never seems to speed up. So we're going one speed the whole time, unless you manually choose the speed you want it to be prior to the game starting. But my grandmother said she wasn't impressed, and guess what? I'm the only one allowed to disappoint her. so it ended up getting a bad grade. Real talk though, the game is brutally slow, and that ultimately boils down to early programming issues with the MSX. Vertical scrolling was not the strong suit of it. If you're into racing, you'll likely know what the Le Mans race is. It's an endurance match, 24 hours long, of people driving really fast for a day. 24 hours, 1,440 minutes, 86,400 seconds. Yeah, you get it. It's a legacy race that's been going on since 1923, at least the first race was. The first proper WEC, which stands for World Endurance Championship, was in 2012. But this game came out in 1986, and it was first an arcade game. So what we have here is an arcade port to the MSX home computer. But the game itself is fucking dreadful, and it was fucking dreadful in the arcades. So what we have here is an even more fucking dreadful PC port. I tell you what, I'll tell you everything good about this game while listening to the soundtrack of it. You ready? At least I can drive forward. It reminds me of pole position with a car, but that car is extremely susceptible to any bumps or deviations in the road. Yeah, that's all I had to say was good. And you likely didn't hear it because you were getting skull-fucked by a buzzer. It's rough because if you hit anything, and I do mean anything, you spin out uncontrollably, and that is beyond frustrating. I couldn't get into it, and to be honest, a lot of folks couldn't get into the arcade game anyway. And that's it for today's list. What did you think of it? Are there any MSX games that irritate you on a fundamental level? Feel free to tell the community down in the comments section below. Who knows, maybe you'll share a common idea with someone else. Speaking of our community, if you made it to the end of this episode, you're already home with us. We're a gathering of retro gaming enthusiasts that love to remember when life was just a little bit easier to live. And if you align with that, feel free to subscribe. Finally, the single most important thing you could do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly impacts the visibility of the videos and the projects that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes. Fortefyre out.